times, since this being the second time I've preached, it's not any easier than the first time. So I've known for over a month that I would be preaching on Mother's Day. So in every moment I've had to myself, I've worked on this sermon. That loosely translates to, I started working on it at 6:53 p.m. yesterday. Was that my first free moment? No. In all honesty, I spend my free time overthinking everything until I fall asleep. Or if I have too much free time, I'm panicked because I must have forgotten something. I'm writing this between cooking dinner, re-washing my bedding because I forgot about it in the washer the first time, and putting my youngest to sleep. This is not to say that I haven't thought about this sermon for over the month, and since I found out about it. I've thought about it constantly, just like a check engine light in your car, just constantly in the back of my mind, just bloop, bloop, bloop. But the way my mind works is I have to wait till the very last second to make it a priority. As I was talking to my mother yesterday, I said, Ma, I'm really struggling with this sermon because I feel like when I talk about mothers, I am comparing us to Jesus. And though we are supposed to be like Jesus, we are not. So I started in. I said, we unconditionally love our children. We forgive, we guide, and we worry constantly. And then the little light flickered. Wait a minute. Jesus wasn't in a state of constant worry. He didn't occasionally lose it on his kids. There was no misplaced anger or aggression. Jesus had faith and trust in the Lord that his plan was going to work out. He trusted the process. And I think as mothers, there are times where we're stuck in our thoughts about our kids. And the whole time, God's over there, like, hand it over to me. You're my child, hand it over to me. Just like we do for our children. We tell them, you got this. And if it gets too heavy, hand it over to us as mothers, and we'll help you carry it. I'll help you. Now, the Bible describes the dynamic of a Christian family as God, husband, father, wife, mother, and children. I was not raised in such a household. And as much as I'd like to believe this is how every Christian household is, unfortunately, that is not the case. Writing this sermon required me to do research to get a deeper understanding of mothers from the perspective of the Bible. And while researching this, I came across a non-typical household in the Bible. In the Bible, we come across a man named Timothy. Timothy's father was described as a Greek and possibly a non-believer. There's not much that's said about his father. So it's believed that his father passed away when Timothy was young. So Timothy was raised by his mother, Eunice, and his grandmother, Lois. Eunice and Lois were both described as Jewish believers. The Bible speaks about how this mother and this grandmother instilled their faith in Timothy. Now later in the Bible, it talks about how Timothy meets up with the Apostle Paul and continues to grow his faith. So much so that he starts his own ministry. Paul ends up getting arrested, and he writes Timothy a couple letters. That's where 1st and 2nd Timothy come from. And we're going to look at 2 Timothy 1:5. I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you as well. It continues on in 2 Timothy 3:14 and 15. But as for you, continue in what you have learned and have firmly believed, knowing from whom you've learned it. There's some different variations. Mine says, but you must remain faithful to the things you have been taught. You know they are true, for you know you can trust those who taught you. You have been taught the Holy Scriptures from childhood, and they have given you wisdom to receive the salvation that comes by trusting in Christ Jesus. Growing up, I didn't grow up in a Christian household. I didn't really know who God was or who Jesus was, or, there was times I remember thinking, well, they must be the same people. Because this is, they're both doing these extraordinary things. It must be the same people. There was one time I think I went to a Sunday morning youth group when I was visiting my grandmother in Texas. I remember seeing a picture of Jesus hanging on my grandma Sally's wall. I remember big dinners. My Nana would pray over dinner, but only at big dinners, just the big ones like the Thanksgiving or the Christmas. And I remember my grandma Brown was the first real influence in knowing about God and Jesus. That's where my first big influence came from. I started my family as a single mother. And there are plenty of us that have, at some point in our lives, been a single mother. And we have this mentality, becoming a Christian, we get in our head, okay, well, we need to have the father there because he needs to teach the children. He needs to teach the children how to be a Christian. And within my learning, I learned it's actually us as mothers. So we as mothers are the ones to teach our children about God. We teach what the Bible says. We are the ones that are to help our children gain a better understanding of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, to teach what it is to pray, to teach kindness, to teach understanding, to teach empathy, to teach forgiveness, and what it means to wake up every day with a thankful heart. Which I know as a mother, sometimes I just want to wake up and roll back over and go to sleep. So it's hard for us. It can be difficult for us as mothers. Which reminds me, because sometimes I feel like we're failing. Me personally, I feel like I fail sometimes when I have misplaced anger or I'm a little short with, can you please play with me? We constantly teach our children, we're constantly trying to teach our children to be good humans, and I think that is the majority of what mothers want for their children. We don't want them to get hurt. We want them to be good humans and good Christians. sometimes we look at our children near the ages of when they become a teen, and I'll let you know when my son has outgrown it, but he's not outgrown it yet. The age of they know everything. In Proverbs 22:6, it says, train up a child in the way he should go, even when he is old, and he will not depart from it. Okay, that's because even back then, teens and young adults didn't listen, so they had to go all the way to when they're old, they'll return to it. It reminds me of the quote that says, raising teens is like trying to nail Jell-O to a tree. You know, it's just next to impossible, and we keep, as mothers, we keep thinking, well, we're going to mess it up. We're going to mess it up. Kids are resilient. My son is shaking his head no, so I must have messed up somewhere. Couldn't be, because he was crazy. This sermon and learning more about Timothy has required me to reflect. As like I told you earlier, the only times I seen anything about Jesus or God was when I was with my grandmothers. It wasn't with my grandfathers. It was with my grandmothers. And more times than not, sometimes you see people who are going through rehab or who have had an exceptionally hard life. And you ask, well, how did you survive? Oh, grandma's prayers, mom's prayers. And that is a real thing. Okay. I've said all this because it's important that we know, yes, men are supposed to model Christian behavior, and it is important because it teaches our sons how to help raise families of their own. And it teaches our daughters how to be loved. But it is our jobs as mother to teach our children about God. Some big verses in the Bible about mothers is Proverbs 31, and it starts at 31:10. When reading this verse, I'm going to say something before I read this verse. These verses. I look at these verses, and I'm like, I'm not checking any of these boxes on this Proverb 31. I feel severely underprepared to be a mother or a wife at this point with these verses. And if I was left to make my children their clothes, they'd all be wearing potato sacks. Okay. An excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant and brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She has dressed herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, and he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the way of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Okay. I'm looking at some of the faces of the women, and it just makes me laugh because in reality, we are doing this stuff. Like us as mothers, we're buying the clothes. We're not making them, but we're buying them. We're feeding our children. Some of us have gardens. I'm pretty sure I can't grow a garden. I've tried. We rise. In this day and age, it looks like, okay, well, we get up, we get the kids ready, we get ourselves ready. One of the funny things is I came to church today and my hair was still wet because I had to get my children ready. So I put myself last, and then I hugged another mother, and her hair was wet because I know she went through the same thing. We constantly are doing for our children and for our households, and, this is whether it's almost intimidating to look at the Proverbs 31:10 through 27, because you're like, okay, well, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? And we as mothers, I explain it like one of those Dixie paper plates. Okay, let's keep throwing stuff on there. And sometimes it just gets a little flimsy in the middle there. And we got to give it back over to God. Okay, God, you're right. I didn't give enough to you. Here, let's take some of this stuff off my plate, And it's hard. It is. I asked my husband, well, what are you thinking about? Well, he's got other things on his mind. And what I'm thinking is, okay, did I get that doctor's appointment scheduled? Did I talk to the teacher? Did I grocery shop enough for to sustain the whole week? Are the clothes clean? Are the dishes washed? Is the house picked up? I went yesterday to buy an outfit for this sermon, and as most of you know, I'm not a real dressy up person. I don't do that a lot. That's not my thing. So I was looking at dresses yesterday, and I'm like, this is crazy. Wearing dresses all the time as a mother is unrealistic, because I'm picking up things, I'm squatting with kids in my arms and whatnot. So I tried to get something that was a little bit like a pajama set. It's not a pajama set, but it looks like it. Because this is more realistic of what mothers are wearing, because it's more versatile. We don't have to worry about our dresses blowing up in Southwest Kansas if we're in pants, We make sure that our kids have their jackets when it's cold. We make sure that their shoes are tied. We make sure that we've scheduled their daughter's eyebrow waxing appointment, If you don't think I'm not going to stand up here and embarrass my children, oh, goodness. It's payback. We do so much as mothers, and this isn't just mothers of children, this is mothers of, some mothers choose to not have children or can't. It doesn't make us any less of a mother, okay? It doesn't, whether you choose to have animals as pets, as children, not as pets, as children, or you have a problem, if there was a problem with conceiving, that want to be a mother is still there. I thank God every day that I never had to experience a miscarriage, but I know that I have sisters that have had miscarriages, and I know, and I have, well, you all know that I have people in my life that couldn't have children. It doesn't make us any less mothers that we don't have children, whatever the circumstances may be. Karen called me and she's like, well, she called me a couple times, so sorry, Karen, asking me, what is the message? What's the scripture message? And it says the calling of motherhood. And it is literally like being a mother is literally like having, the best way I can explain it is like having an exposed nerve where we have this, our children, it's like we're walking around with hearts on our sleeves. Our children are our nerves, and we have to protect them and build them up the way they should go and keep them protected and make sure that we're not messing them up, which is a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot for a mother. Kids, well, at least my kids, they like to be silly and goofy, and sometimes they like to follow the ways of the world, and I want to shake them when they do that, but that's apparently child abuse. Can't shake them. Just kidding. That's no laughing matter, sorry. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter if you're up to date on the latest fashion, what car we carry our children around in, and that doesn't matter. Some of my kids think that matters, but, It doesn't matter if you burnt dinner, because some of us aren't great cooks, and that's okay. It doesn't matter what play group you take your kids to. Fun fact, I never took my kids to play groups. Mainly because I didn't want to interact with other mothers. I didn't want to compare myself. Also, I'm an introvert, so. As I said in the beginning, this sermon has required me to really reflect on myself as a mother. And, my son tells me all the time, Malin's not being raised by the same mother I was raised by. Yeah, you're right about that. When I started raising Adam, I believed in God, but I was very young in my faith. I took him to church a couple times. It wasn't much. And usually he was messing around at the front when they did the children's story, so I, was embarrassed a little bit. I didn't realize there was people in the congregation egging him on, because I was in the back, I couldn't see, but nonetheless, Malin is being raised by a different version of the same mother, where my patience is a little bit more intact. I have a little bit of help because I have a husband now, so that's kind of nice. Kind of nice, Just kidding. But nonetheless, I feel very blessed to be their mother. I think that the difference between Adam and Malin they definitely have different personalities. Adam's a little more outgoing. Malin's a little bit more empathetic. Memphis is just out on her own. I don't know what's going on with that one. I didn't really know how to take this, doing a Mother's Day sermon, and not I really did struggle with, comparing, because there's times where Adam does things and I'm like, I should just disown you, kid. But I can't, because I'm his mother, and I love him too much. Everybody says, oh, would you change anything as we go on, we get older, the more you know, the better you do. The more you know more now, you do better now. And that's how I try to explain it to my children. The older you get, the more you know. Just like in the Bible verse, back again, to re-reference Proverbs 22:6, train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. And I have faith in that. Like, I don't see the return yet of what is being taught. I see little glimpses here and there, but I don't see Adam preaching anytime soon. And I think he has to get a little bit older and grow in his faith. Nonetheless, Proverbs 31:28 says, her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. He praises her. But I'm kind of going to go off script here. That was supposed to be the conclusion as I was stressing and talking to my father-in-law about it last night, and he was like, oh, he gave me the option. I'll just close it up with Proverbs 31:28. I am here to tell you, here's my off script. Being a mother is hard, and something I've realized is the husbands don't have the same thought process. They do not. The amount of stuff that goes on in my mind a day is crazy. And I know that other mothers can attest to this, that we are constantly constantly thinking about, okay, what can we do to do this, make this better, or do this? And so as a mother, I am asking fathers that when we are a little bit stressed, we might be a little bit snippy, but be patient with us, because we're over here trying to give it away to God. And sometimes we feel God is too quiet, and we as mothers need to realize that when the person is right next to you, they're not going to shout. So when I think, God, what am I supposed to do? And I don't feel like I hear him, I need to be a little bit quieter, because that's when I feel like he's right next to me and he's whispering to me on how to help me and how to grow my children to be followers of God, to have faith and trust in the Lord, because that is our most important job as mothers, is to raise our children to follow God. I see a lot of women who don't have children who become teachers, and that's another way we can reach out to other children. I work in the school, and nobody's ever came out and said, don't talk about God to your children. But if they speak to me about it, they ask me questions, then I respond. Because even in that setting, you can reach other children. You come across a child. Every time you come across a child, it's a chance to share some little snippet of the word, whatever it might be, you see kids fighting in the playground. Oh, we shouldn't be fighting each other. It's better to be kind. It doesn't matter where we're reaching the children, and it doesn't have to be our own children. It can be other people's children, respectively. I feel like I've went long enough. I don't know, they told me there's some kind of time limit I'm supposed to keep. And I'm at the point now where I feel like I'm kind of rambling and, just repeating myself. But I just want to, like I said, I just want to remind everybody that being a mother is hard. And, in the Bible, it talks about how Jesus went off to the woods to pray. If you are a mother in this congregation today and you feel like you need to run off to the woods, call me. I'll watch your kids. Because sometimes I feel like I want to run off to the woods and pray. I really like it when I get so overwhelmed that I leave the house and I take a little drive to a park by myself and I turn off my Life 360 location. Oh, goodness, you would have thought I burned the world down. All right, so with that, we'll go to the